Hello, brothers and sisters. So, I am continuing my study. One of the comments that I had pointed me to Isaiah 18. So, I started reading Isaiah 18, and I just have a few things that I want to share. So, a message to Cush. Woe to the land of whirring wings along the rivers of Cush. Now remember, all of these places are actually representative of places in the latter days. So this isn't actually talking about Ethiopia or Cush, okay? This is talking about a nation in the latter days that has some of the characteristics that Cush had in the past, so that we can recognize who it is. Anyway, and so when it says of many wings, it says or of many locusts. Now remember that that is one of the things that it talks about in Joel. I'm in Joel 1. Has anything like this ever happened in your days or in the days of your fathers? Tell it to your children. Let your children tell it to their children and their children to the next generation. So this is going to be a big event, right? Which reminds me of a verse, hang on, in Jeremiah 16. Starting in verse 14, yet behold, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when they will no longer say, as surely as Yahweh lives, who brought the Israelites up out of the land of Egypt. Instead, they will say, as surely as Yahweh lives, who brought the Israelites up out of the land of the north and all the other lands to which he had banished them. For I will return them to their land that I gave to their forefathers. But for now, I will send for many fishermen, declares Yahweh, and they will catch them. Okay, that was, I believe, the commission given to the disciples, right? To go be fishers of men, right? And after that, I will send for many hunters, and they will hunt them down on every mountain and hill, even from the clefts of the rocks. This is what is about to happen once Zion is established. Once the ensign goes up on the mountain, then the hunters will be sent out, and not a single Israelite will be left. They will all be brought back, every one of them, who brought the Israelites up out of the land of the north and all the other lands to which he had banished them. And what is it referring to when it's talking about the land of the north? Let's find out. It tells us in Jeremiah 3, return, O faithless children, declares Yahweh, for I am your master, and I will take you, one from a city and two from a family, and bring you where? To Zion. That's the land of the north. Then I will give you shepherds after my own heart who will feed you with knowledge and understanding. In those days, when you multiply and increase in the land, declares Yahweh, they will no longer discuss the Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh. It will never come to mind, and no one will remember it or miss it, nor will another be made. Right? Because we don't need an ark, because we will have Yahushua Mashiach, Jesus Christ, in our midst. He is our mercy seat. At that time, Jerusalem will be called the throne of Yahweh. So this is the new Jerusalem. And all the nations will be gathered in Jerusalem to honor the name of Yahweh. They will no longer follow the stubbornness of their evil hearts. In those days, the house of Judah will walk with the house of Israel. Those are the two sticks coming back together. That's Ezekiel 37. And they will come together. Where are they coming together? Where the New Jerusalem is. Where's the New Jerusalem? From the land of the north. And then from there to the land that I gave to your fathers as an inheritance. Okay, now let's go back to Isaiah 18 where we started. Woe to the land of whirring wings, right? The land of the locusts. And what did we read? Did we get that far in Joel? Did we read it? I don't remember. Right, so in verse 4, of Joel 1, what the devouring locust has left, the swarming locust has eaten. What the swarming locust has left, the young locust has eaten. And what the young locust has left, the destroying locust has eaten. Okay, so I believe that because of these word ties, that these are talking about the same people, right? The same location, the same time period. Woe to the land of whirring wings or locusts along the rivers of Cush, which sends couriers by sea and papyrus vessels on the waters. Go, swift messengers, to a people tall and smooth-skinned, to a people widely feared, to a powerful nation of strange speech. Now that's very interesting, because one of the things that it says about where the New Jerusalem is going to be established in Isaiah 19. Okay, so I'm in verse 18 of Isaiah 19. In that day, 5 cities in the land of Egypt. Remember, this isn't ancient Egypt. This is a land that is like ancient Egypt, that we have to identify here in the latter days. In that day, 5 cities in the land of Egypt will speak the language of Canaan and swear allegiance to Yahweh Sabaoth. One of them will be called the city of the sun. All right. I believe the city of the sun is the New Jerusalem. I believe this is what it's talking about. And then coming back over here where we were, what did it say? To a powerful nation of strange speech. The United States of America is a very powerful nation of strange speech. It would be strange speech. Here, I believe in Isaiah 19, that is what it's referring to as the language of Canaan. I think that's what it's calling English. They speak the English language, which to Isaiah would have been a strange speech, whose land is divided by rivers. So here's the United States of America. Okay, here's the west and here's the east. And there's something that divides the west from the east. And what is that? It is the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River system. Look at this river. Look at this river. And then it's going to split up and go this way and this way. This is the Great Lakes. So we've come all the way up just to show you. We're all the way up here to the Great Lakes, and it just keeps going. Look at this. It divides the country in half. Here's a better picture that shows it. See, here's the Mississippi River, and here's the river systems. Look at that. The entire country is divided by these rivers. Go, swift messengers. I'm back in Isaiah 18. Oh, before we go back there, there's one other thing I wanted to share. Now, so we just read about Egypt, which will have the 5 cities that speak the language of Canaan, right? I want to go back up here and I want to show you what's going on there, okay? Look at this. It says the princes, that would be the leaders of Zoan, are mere fools. Pharaoh's wise counselors give senseless advice. How can you say to Pharaoh, I am one of the wise, a son of eastern kings? Anyway, coming down, the princes of Zoan have become fools. The princes of Memphis are deceived. Now, Zoan, what was Zoan? Let me show this to you. By using the term Zoan, it's tying us right back to the original Exodus, all right? So it's right here. Psalm 78, 12 and 43 identifies the field of Zoan, so this is the location, as the location where Moses performed miracles before a biblical Pharaoh to persuade him to release the Israelites from his service. So this is where the king, in the case of the United States, the president and the body of the governors, right, of the land would be located. In antiquity, this was Goshen. So this Pharaoh had actually set up his court in this place of refuge that was originally given to the Israelites. It was a land that was set apart for the Israelites. But the Pharaoh, this Pharaoh, had instead set up his government and had become a tyrant governor, right? A Pharaoh, a tyrant Pharaoh over God's people, over Israel, and had entered into their land to do it. Because this field of Zoan, you could say, is the field of Goshen, the place where the Israelites were, the land that was set apart for them. In other words, they had been invaded. Okay, so Memphis was founded around 3100 BCE, before Christ. Memphis was the first capital of the unified kingdom of Upper and Lower Egypt. Okay, so that would be like our Washington, D.C., wouldn't it? Anyway, it was abandoned in the 7th century of the Common Era, or after Christ, but remains an important archaeological site. It says during its more than 3,000 years of history, Memphis was an important political and religious center. That's what we need to understand. That's what it is, their political and religious center, where the ancient Egyptian deity Ptah was venerated. It was also the city where the pharaohs were crowned. Okay, so where are the inaugurations held whenever we have a new president? So it says the princes of Zoan have become fools. The princes of Memphis are deceived. The cornerstone of her tribes have led Egypt astray. So this is where they are. Yahweh has poured into her a spirit of confusion. Let's see one other reference about Memphis in the scriptures. First, I want to give context for who we're talking about. This is Hosea chapter 9. I will go down to verse 11 to get the context, and then we'll go back up to the verse I want to read. It says, as for Ephraim, their glory shall fly away like a bird. Remember, Ephraim is the firstborn son, but he is definitely going to go through refinement, right? And there's only going to be a remnant left. As for Ephraim, their glory shall fly away like a bird. No birth, no pregnancy, and no conception. Though they bring up their children, yet I will bereave them to the last man. Yes, woe to them when I depart from them. So just as I saw Ephraim like Tyre, planted in a pleasant place. You might want to go and watch my video about who I think Tyre is, which is interesting. It makes sense that Ephraim would be tied to Tyre because I believe Tyre is the United Kingdom, right? And since I believe that Ephraim is in the United States, then it makes perfect sense because of the relationship, right, between the United States and England. But anyway, just as I saw Ephraim like Tyre planted in a pleasant place, so Ephraim will bring out his children to the murderer. Okay, this is about Baal Peor worship, right? They would pass their children through the fires of Baal, right? So that's Ephraim. Now this is Israel, all of Israel, right? I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness. I saw your fathers as the first fruits on the fig tree in its first season. But they went to Baal Peor and separated themselves to that shame. So this is who we're talking about. We're talking about Ephraim and Israel. This is the subject. I just wanted to make sure we knew who we were talking about. So coming back up to verse 6, it says, for indeed they are gone because of destruction. Egypt, because they're in Egypt. We find that out in Hosea. We're told twice that Ephraim is in Egypt. Okay. For indeed they are gone because of destruction. Egypt shall gather them up. Memphis, this is the capital, remember, both the religious and political capital, shall bury them. What did it just say down here about Ephraim? It says, coming down here, so Ephraim will bring out his children to the murderer. What does it say up here that we just read? Up here in 6. Egypt shall gather them up. Memphis shall bury them. Nettles shall possess their valuables of silver. Thorns shall be in their tents. Why? Why? The prophet is a fool. The spiritual man is insane because of the greatness of your iniquity and great enmity. The watchman of Ephraim is with my God, but the prophet is a fowler's snare in all his ways. So, tough times for Ephraim. I promise we'll get through this. I'm sorry. I know I go all over the place, but I have to make these connections. This study is for me, and I'm sharing it with you guys. These connections are important. This is how we understand who this is talking about. Otherwise, we're just reading words on the page with no meaning. Go swift messengers to a people tall and smooth-skinned, to a people widely feared, to a powerful nation of strange speech, whose land is divided by rivers. All you people of the world and dwellers of the earth, when a banner is raised on the mountains, you will see it. Yeah, and that is in Jeremiah. Jeremiah 31:6, for there will be a day when the watchman will call out on the hills of Ephraim. And where is Ephraim? In Egypt. And where is Egypt? I believe it's the United States, the land divided by rivers. Anyway, the fearsome nation, right? For there will be a day when watchmen will call out on the hills of Ephraim, arise, let us go up to Zion, to Yahweh our Elohim. When a banner is raised in the mountains, you will see it. When a ram's horn sounds, you will hear it. That's Joel. We're going back to Joel, right? So we had the locusts tie, and now we're going to have the ram's horn. Hang on. So here it is, the army of locusts. And what is the first thing? Blow the ram's horn in Zion. Sound the alarm on my holy mountain. Let all who dwell in the land tremble. I'm so sorry. It's just that this is the land that I live in. And I have a very tender heart. And I can see these things in my mind's eye as I'm reading. Back to Isaiah 18. Go swift messengers to a people tall and smooth-skinned, to a people widely feared, to a powerful nation of strange speech, whose land is divided by rivers. All you people of the world and dwellers of the earth, when a banner is raised on the mountains, you will see it. When a ram's horn sounds, you will hear it. So the whole world is going to see and hear this when it happens. For this is what Yahweh has told me. I will quietly. Now this is important. This is what we're going to see in Isaiah 30. I will quietly look on from my dwelling place, like shimmering heat in the sunshine, like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. This is Isaiah 30. I'm in verse 15. For thus says Yahweh Sabaoth. For thus says Adonai Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel. The Holy One of Israel. The Holy One of Israel is Yahushua HaMashiach. That's Jesus Christ. In returning and rest you shall be saved. In what? In returning and rest you shall be saved. What did we just read? I will quietly look on from my dwelling place, like shimmering heat in the sunshine, from Mount Zion, from the place of rest. Look at this. In returning and rest you shall be saved. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. All right? And that's what's going to happen for the remnant. But look, most of them are not going to heed that. But you would not. And you said, no, for we will flee on horses. So instead of being quiet and confident, they're going to flee. Therefore you shall flee. And we will ride on swift horses. Therefore those who pursue you shall be swift. 1,000 shall flee at the threat of one. At the threat of 5 you shall flee. Till you are left as a people. You are left as a pole. A tree stripped of its branches. Till you are left as a pole. Where? On top of a mountain. And as a banner on a hill. That's what we just read. Back to Isaiah 18. All you people of the world and dwellers of the earth, when a banner is raised on the mountains, you will see it. And the reason why I weep so much is because I understand the story. So Isaiah chapter 1 tells us that the daughter of Zion, these are those that are going to be found on Mount Zion. This is that little remnant that's left of Ephraim. Okay? It tells us that unless the Lord of hosts, Yahweh Sabaoth, had left us a few survivors, we would have become like Sodom. We would have resembled Gomorrah. That's why here in Isaiah 30, it refers to them as a pole. So a tree that's had all of its branches stripped off. There's just the one main branch left. And here's the beautiful part, verse 18. Therefore, Yahweh will wait that he may be gracious to you. He is waiting on us, and therefore he will be exalted, that he may have mercy on you. For Yahweh is a God of justice. Blessed are all those who wait for him. For the people shall dwell in Zion at Jerusalem, the new Jerusalem. You shall weep no more. He will be very gracious to you at the sound of your cry. So as soon as we cry out, that's Joel, right? Blow the ram's horn in Zion, sound the alarm on my holy mountain. Let all who dwell in the land tremble, for the day of Yahweh is coming. Joel 2:12, yet even now, declares Yahweh, return to me with all your heart, with fasting, weeping, and mourning. Rend your hearts and not your garments, and return to Yahweh your Elohim, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, abounding in loving devotion, and he relents from sending disaster. Who knows? He may turn and relent and leave a blessing behind him. Blow the ram's horn in Zion, consecrate a fast, proclaim a sacred assembly. Okay, this is the calling. Let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, right? Gather the people, sanctify the congregation, assemble the aged, gather the children, even those nursing at the breast. Let the bridegroom leave his room and the bride her chamber. And back in Isaiah 18, all you people of the world and dwellers of the earth, when a banner is raised on the mountains, you will see it. When a ram's horn sounds, you will hear it. For this is what Yahweh has told me. I will quietly look on from my dwelling place, like shimmering heat in the sunshine, like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest, quietly. For before the harvest, when the blossom is gone and the flower becomes a ripening grape, he will cut off the shoots with a pruning knife and remove and discard the branches. What did we just read in Isaiah 30? Is this 30? No, that's Isaiah 1. So they're going to run fleeing instead of what it says earlier, in returning and rest you shall be saved. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength, right? But most of the people are going to run around fleeing instead. And where are they going to flee to? It tells us in some of the other scriptures. They're going to flee to Egypt, to Zoan, to the leaders. They're going to look to the religious and political leaders to save them. And there they're going to find destruction instead of being saved. Anyway, it says, till you are left as a pole, okay, and what on top of a mountain, and as a banner on a hill. And what was the pole? A tree stripped of its branches. And what did we just read here? Sorry, I had to go back. For before the harvest, when the blossom is gone and the flower becomes a ripening grape, he will cut off the shoots with a pruning knife and remove and discard the branches. They will all be left to the mountain birds of prey and to the beasts of the land. The birds will feed on them in the summer and all the wild animals in the winter. It's going to be a great destruction. At that time, gifts will be brought to Yahweh Sabaoth from a people tall and smooth skin, from a people widely feared, from a powerful nation of strange speech, whose land is divided by rivers, to Mount Zion, the place of the name of Yahweh Sabaoth. Let's repeat that. To Mount Zion, the place of the name of Yahweh Sabaoth. Revelation chapter 3, the church of Philadelphia. Upon him I will write the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from my God. And who's coming down out of heaven? Who's coming back? Yahushua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ, and my new name. Okay, Isaiah 30, let's continue this theme. Behold, the name of Yahweh comes from afar, right? Because the New Jerusalem is from afar. It's the land of the north. As we saw in Jeremiah, they're going to gather together and become a great people again. Okay, so the second Exodus is going to happen. The hunting Israel from all over the world. Where are they going to be gathered to? To the land of the New Jerusalem, to Mount Zion, the land of the north. And then from that land, they'll go out and repossess the land that was given to their forefathers. That's Jeremiah chapter 3 that I read to you at the beginning of the study. Anyway, going forward in verse 27, it says, behold, the name of Yahweh comes from afar. Didn't we just see that they're going to have the name of the city of their God? And then here in Isaiah, it says to Mount Zion, the place of the name of Yahweh Sabaoth. We have to see these ties because it's the only way these things are going to make sense. Behold, the name of Yahweh comes from afar, burning with his anger, and his burden is heavy, his lips are full of indignation, and his tongue like a devouring fire. His breath is like an overflowing stream, which reaches up to the neck of his enemy, right? The stream of power and of people and of his army is streaming. It's the stream of destruction, right? To the wicked, that is, to sift the nations with the sieve of futility. And there shall be a bridle in the jaws of the people, causing them to err. Jeremiah 5:31, the prophets prophesy falsely, and the priests rule by their own authority. My people love to have it so, but what will you do in the end? And there shall be a bridle in the jaws of the people, causing them to err. Isaiah 9:16, for the leaders of this people cause them to err, and those who are led by them are destroyed. And there shall be, back in Isaiah 30, a bridle in the jaws of the people, causing them to err. Ooh, one other scripture jumped in my head. 2 Thessalonians 2:9, the coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish. Why do they perish? Because they did not receive the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this reason, God will send them strong delusion, that they should believe the lie, that they all may be condemned, who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. You shall have a song, back in Isaiah 30, as in the night when a holy festival is kept, right? And the 144,000 are given a new song, right? And gladness of heart as when one goes with a flute to come into the mountain of the Lord. These are those that are entering Mount Zion, right? And that's where the 144,000 are found, right? And it says that Jesus is there on Mount Zion with the 144,000. That's in the book of Revelation. Okay, you shall have a song as in the night when a holy festival is kept, and gladness of heart as when one goes with a flute to come into the mountain of Yahweh, to the mighty one of Israel. That's Yahushua HaMashiach, right? That's who's going to be there with the 144,000. I'll just read that verse. Revelation 14:1. Then I looked and saw the Lamb, Yahushua HaMashiach, the mighty one of Israel, Jesus Christ, standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. There's that reference that we just read earlier about having the name of the city written on them, right? And the name of their God. and moving down, and the sound I heard was like harpists strumming their harps, and they sang a new song before the throne. Okay, this I believe is the same language that we're hearing right here. So you shall have a song as in the night when a holy festival is kept, and gladness of heart as when one goes with a flute, to come into the mountain of Yahweh, to the mighty one of Israel. Yahweh will cause his glorious voice to be heard and show the descent of his arm. With the indignation of his anger and the flame of a devouring fire, with scattering tempest and hailstones. For through the voice of Yahweh, Assyria will be beaten down. Okay, so this is the evil tyrant, right? Just like the Pharaoh who came into that land that was promised to the Israelites, the land of Goshen, came in there, right, and set up rule. Okay, so the Assyrian is coming into the promised land where the New Jerusalem is going to be in the modern Egypt, and it's taken up rule, right? So, for through the voice of Yahweh, Assyria will be beaten down as he strikes with the rod. Okay, let me show that to you in Isaiah. As I'm going to what I want to share with you, I ran upon this verse and thought I'd read it to you. Isaiah 11:11, it shall come to pass in that day, so this is the latter days, that Yahweh will set his hand again the second time. Okay, this is the second Exodus, to recover the remnant of his people who are left. Okay, so these are those who have been cleansed from Assyria. Remember, the Assyrian is going to have set up his rule, right? And Egypt, okay? From Pathros and Cush, where did we just read about in Isaiah 18, right? The land that's divided by rivers, where the whirring of the wings are in the land of Cush. From Elam and Shinar, and from Hamath and the islands of the sea. These are references that help us to identify this latter day group of people. Look at this. He will set up a banner for the nations and will assemble the outcasts of Israel. Same story, guys. And look at this. Also the envy of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not harass Ephraim. These are the two coming together. That's Ezekiel 37 and Jeremiah chapter 3. And I got to read this verse. There will be a highway for the remnant of his people who will be left from Assyria, as it was for Israel in the day that he came up from the land of Egypt. There's the Exodus to Mount Zion for his people. Look at this in Isaiah 13, the noise of a multitude, where in the mountains, like that of many people. That's what it said. They will become a great number. That is Jeremiah chapter 3, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. That's exactly what he says he's going to do. Yahweh Sabaoth musters the army for battle. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven. Yahweh and his weapons of indignation to destroy the whole land. Okay, so let's just read that real quick. Back to Jeremiah 3, just to put this back in our head so we can see this. At that time, Jerusalem will be called the throne of Yahweh, and all the nations will be gathered in Jerusalem, the New Jerusalem, to honor the name of Yahweh. They will no longer follow the stubbornness of their evil hearts. Coming down a little further. Here we are, we come to you, for you are Yahweh our Elohim. Surely deception comes from the hills and commotion from the mountains. Surely the salvation of Israel is in Yahweh our Elohim. Okay, verse 18, in those days, the house of Judah will walk with the house of Israel. This is Ephraim, with the house of Ephraim. And they will come together from the land of the north to the land that I gave to your fathers as an inheritance. So this is the tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together, where in Mount Zion the two are coming together, Judah and Ephraim. They're in the mountains, and they are getting ready to go out, just like they did when they crossed the river Jordan, to retake the lands of inheritance that they were given. Only this time, instead of being under Joshua, which interestingly enough, Yahuwah, right? Yahusha, that is the same name as Jesus Christ, right? As Jesus, not as Christ, right? Because he is Joshua the Christ. Jesus Christ is, right? Yahushua Mashiach. Yahushua of old was Joshua who led the armies of Israel right across the River Jordan and into the promised land. So now it's going to be the true Joshua, right? Our Savior, the Mashiach, who is going to lead them, Israel, back to those promised lands. I wasn't going to read this one, but it's the same theme that we've been looking at. And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel, those left, and such as have escaped of the house of Jacob, will never again depend on him who defeated them. They're not going to go running and fleeing, right, to these other powers to save them. They're not going to make covenants. You know, when you make a covenant, it means that you are putting your trust and confidence in that other person or entity. They're no longer going to make a covenant with anyone but the Holy One of Israel. They're not going to depend anymore on him who defeated them, but will depend on Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel, Yahushua Mashiach, in truth. And this was the verse I was looking for. Therefore, thus says Yahweh Sabaoth, O my people who dwell in Zion. Okay, these are those who are currently living in the region that will become Zion, the New Jerusalem, the physical location where this is going to occur. Do not be afraid of the Assyrian. Why? Because the Assyrian is ruling over them. He shall strike you with a rod. Okay, so just like it says, and in striking Egypt, I will heal it. That's Isaiah 19. And lift up his staff against you in the manner of Egypt. So this is exactly the same. Just like I showed you that Zoan was actually Goshen, but it got renamed Zoan, right? By the Pharaoh that came in and took control. Just like the Assyrian is coming into this Goshen, this land that was set apart, right, for Joseph, and then for the whole house of Israel as a place of safety during this time that God is going to pour out his wrath upon the whole earth. This will be the place of safety where they can come to Mount Zion. He shall strike you with a rod and lift up his staff against you in the manner of Egypt for yet a very little while, and the indignation will cease, as will my anger in their destruction. And Yahweh Sabaoth will stir up a scourge for him, like the slaughter of Midian at the rock of Oreb. As his rod was on the sea, so will he lift it up in the manner of Egypt. And let's read this last verse. It shall come to pass in that day that his burden will be taken away from your shoulder, and his yoke from your neck. So that bondage will be gone, and the yoke will be destroyed because of the anointing oil. What is the anointing oil? It's the Holy Spirit, isn't it? We are going to be filled with the Spirit of our God. We'll be the 5 wise virgins. We'll have oil in our lamps. For through the voice of Yahweh, Assyria will be beaten down. I'm back in Isaiah 30. I'm finishing up. As he strikes with the rod. And in every place where the staff of punishment passes, which Yahweh lays on him, it will be with tambourines and harps, right? Because they're going to come singing the new song to Mount Zion. And in battles of brandishing, he will fight with it. For Tophet was established of old. Yes, for the king is prepared. He has made it deep and large. Its pyre is fire with much wood. The breath of Yahweh, like a stream of brimstone, kindles it. So in Jeremiah 19, we have the prophecy about the destruction of Jerusalem of old, the Babylonian destruction, right? Which was a terrible time when the city was sieged. And if I remember the story right, they even ate their their children out of desperation. It was horrendous. He tells why that terrible destruction is going to happen here. He says, I am going to bring such disaster, I'm in Jeremiah 19, on this place that the ears of all who hear it will ring, because they have abandoned me and made this a foreign place. So this place, Goshen, Zoan, that is a place of refuge. It was a place prepared for the Israelites. Okay, the United States was supposed to be a land dedicated to our God. And we've repeated the same story. It says they have burned incense in this place to other gods that neither they nor their fathers nor the kings of Judah have ever known. They have filled this place with the blood of the innocent. They have built high places to Baal on which to burn their children, and the fire is an offering to Baal. What did we read in Hosea about Ephraim in the latter days? That he will bring his children out to the murderers. Something I never commanded or mentioned, nor did it even enter my mind. And who are the murderers? It's the Assyrian. It's the leaders. Okay, they are turning their children over to whatever the government is telling them they need to do with their children, to all these systems, and it's for the destruction of their children. So behold, the days are coming, declares Yahweh, when this place will no longer be called Topheth, or the valley of Ben Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. Okay, so that's why we have to read all of these different references, because it gives meaning to what we're trying to understand. I found that Father's word is a tapestry, and you have to weave all the threads in before the picture starts to show. So just like it says here, so we'll just go back now that we've read about what that is. For Topheth was established of old. Yes, for the king it is prepared. He has made it deep and large. Its pyre, funeral pyre, right, is fire with much wood. The breath of Yahweh, like a steam of brimstone, kindles it. So this is all about the destruction of the Assyrian. So what I want to finish with is this verse. In returning and rest, you shall be saved. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. I will quietly look on from my dwelling place, like shimmering heat in the sunshine, like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. Exodus 14 will end with these verses. And when Pharaoh drew near, the children of Israel lifted their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. So they were very afraid, and the children of Israel cried out to Yahweh. Then they said to Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us to bring us up out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. This is exactly what's going to happen. Most of Ephraim, most of Israel, most of the people are going to turn back to the Egyptians, are going to turn back to Pharaoh, to the Assyrian, for salvation because of fear. They're going to fear. But we have to remember the story. And Moses said to the people, do not be afraid. Stand still and see the salvation of Yahweh, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. Yahweh will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace in quietness and stillness. In returning and rest you shall be saved. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. I hope this was worth your time. Thank you for studying with me.